This lesson is a continuation of our toned paper lesson. This is part 2. Let's just go over what we've covered so far. We've drawn our onions with our 2B or bead pencil using short straight lines. We've included an axis that connects the root side of the onion to the top, whatever direction that is. Then we've used a cross contour line to indicate how the onion is either turned towards us or away from us. Okay? And that cross contour happens at the widest point of your onion. On this one, it would be from here down to here, the widest point. Then we did our comparisons. We looked at horizontal comparisons, maybe where this onion is sitting in its relationship to the closer one. Okay, the top of this one maybe to that one. We've done vertical comparisons. Where does this onion come in relationship maybe to this cast shadow? All right. Then we've done proportional comparisons. How big is this onion to this onion? And we've checked that. Or how high is it to how wide is it? Okay. So we've done our proportional comparisons. So the last thing that we did in the last video is we then went in with our Sanguine Conte pencil and we added value 4 over the shadow side and over the cast shadow. All right. And then we went in and started darkening the shadow edge of the form shadow and darkening the dark area of the cast shadow. Okay, and that's where we're at right now in this drawing. Okay, just remember when you go to work those areas, you're going to use cross contour. Go that direction, this direction, to start filling in our values. Okay, and on the table we're going to do horizontal strokes. All right. Now, one thing I want to cover when I'm talking about the red here is if you have an area that you need to lighten, you've gotten too dark and you need to lighten it, you're going to use your gray kneaded eraser. All right. And we're not going to erase by moving our hand back and forth. We're going to take this eraser. You're going to stick it where you want it to lighten it, and then you're going to roll your eraser in an upward direction, and it's going to pull off the Conte and lighten the area. And then you can go back in and develop your tone again. Do not go back and forth because you're just going to smear it. All right? Now, today I want to talk about our white Conte pencil. So now we're going to look at the light side. Now this drawing is different than the one we did on white paper where we built up to the highlight. On tone paper, we're going to start with the highlight. So let's look at this onion here. My light source is coming in this way, which means that my light is going to be perpendicular to the axis of this onion. And so I'm going to lay in that light area, that highlight. All right. I can move in more than one direction. Okay. I'm going to identify where that is. All right. So that would be my 0 value. Next, I'm going to start adding my value number 1. Okay, which should show some of the brown paper. All right, it's not as solid as the highlight. Okay. And then I'm going to work my way towards the shadow edge with my value number 2. Okay. And that would have even more brown paper showing. But one thing I want you to think about though is when we worked on our egg project, the eggs dispersed the light over the entire surface because they were porous and they had, these little holes in them. so the light was dispersed. But the onion is very reflective. Not as reflective as a black object, like we saw in our mass drawing project, but pretty reflective, somewhere between an egg and that black object. So this highlight area, this zero area, is going to be pretty light. All right? So make sure that you really get the feeling of that light, and then soften it to value 1, and then value 2. Okay? Over here, my onion's laying this way. My light is perpendicular again. I'm making sure that that highlight is strong. Okay? And then I can work value 1 and value 2. And when I look at this onion, this highlight comes pretty abruptly against the tone of the paper to value 3. Okay? So I want you to look for any area where there's a slight abrupt change, and it's going to happen in one section of the highlight. In this case, it's going to be this upper part of the highlight, and in this case, it's going to be this part of the highlight. Okay? The edge that actually faces the light source. All right? You can add some details, like I have like this piece of skin that's peeling up, so you can focus on that. There's a little light edge on here, which I could focus on, and there's this little edge here. Okay, I can add some of those details. I can add the cast shadow for that little paper fiber. Okay? Next thing I want to talk about is the background. Okay, right now I don't have anything in the background, and I'm going to start adding the white to the background in parallel diagonal lines. Okay, so let me take this onion. I have the onion pretty dark on this side. This is the side that's facing up towards the ceiling, so it's not getting any reflected light, so it's darker. Right there I'm going to start adding my parallel diagonal lines and creating a light value behind the onion, so it gives a feeling of spatial relationship. Okay? All right, parallel diagonal lines. I'm going to do the same thing on here, and I'm going to keep the parallel going exactly the same. It's going to move across like this. Again, I'm starting on the dark side, the darkest part of the onion, and lightening it there. Okay? Now this background is nowhere near going to be as light as my highlight. Okay? The background has to be number 2 going into number 3, which is the value of the paper. Next, I want you to think about the tabletop. How light is the table compared to the background, or compared to our onion? And those lines I want you to form in parallel, horizontal, diagonal lines, just like we did the cast shadows. And so what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to make it a little bit brighter in this area, because again there's a darker edge here, and the contrast will make the onion pop. And then I'm just going to make it less so as I get away from that point. Here I may add a little bit here, but I don't want to overdo it on the onion that is further away. Okay? Because this one is closer to me and it should be more in focus. All right? So that being said, the last thing I want you to do is to look at the whole drawing and look at the range that you've created within this drawing. Okay? And make sure you're getting the full range. So there's one important note that I want to talk about, is our red Conte is not as dark as our charcoal. All right, charcoal is a lot darker. So it seems like when you're drawing here, you might not feel like you're getting dark enough. But we have to work in the range that the instrument is giving us, okay? So you can get dark, but this is as dark as it's going to get. It's not going to get any darker than that. All right, so don't keep going over and over and over it again. All right. But looking at it the other way, this white Conte is much brighter than the white paper in our last drawing. This highlight feels more illuminated. So when we take that into consideration, our value scale is shifting ever so slightly toward the light end, because our red is not as dark as the black, but our white is much brighter than the white of the paper. So just take that into consideration as you're working your drawing. Don't get too dark with the red, and then get bright enough with the white Conte. Okay? And in this drawing, I'm not completed. It's not completed. I would still keep working this. But I'll just show you the completed one is this, and you can see how I've taken the white further in the background. I've actually gotten into some of the details of the root here and here, the fold of the skin of the onion, and then here's the top of the onion. I've added those little details as well. And this is your second session on this project. I'm giving you one more session to work on it, and then I need you to take a photo of it and upload it to the assignment section. And if you have questions about taking the photo, please review the video on how to take a photo of your drawing so that I can discern what your drawing really looks like and can make a critique.